Welcome back. I'm here with a good friend of mine from a long time ago, Dandapani. Some of the things and lessons that I've learned from you have had some of the most fundamental, meaningful changes in my life. And so this is going to kind of be fun because I'm going to hit on happiness. I'm going to hit on legacy. I want to hit on focus and attention, obviously, the subject of your wonderful book. But I want to go way back to a story that I have retold many times about you with you, and I don't know if I'm actually remembering it properly.
Okay. Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. I think it was 2014.
Okay.
You were in Toronto. We were at the Shangri-La Hotel, and it was after Mastermind Talks. And here's the scene as far as I remember it. I'll try to paint a picture. And again, like
Okay.
I don't know if this is actually how it was, but
Yeah.
we're in like one of the fancier hotels, and me and you were kind of laughing slash making jokes at all of the men who were trying to hit on the prostitutes who were sitting at the bar,
Mm,
waiting for their, like, I guess, Johns for the night.
right.
And for some reason, at some point in this conversation, I decided to ask you a question that I'd been struggling with at the time,
Yeah.
which in my memory, it's Dandapani. I'm at this point where I didn't ever think that I'd get to. This was never anything that I wanted as like a personal trainer as a kid growing up in
Mm,
Toronto, where I've made more money than I thought that I would make, and how do I know now like what is enough?
mm.
Do you remember what you said? Or do you remember, or what would you say? Because I remember asking you this question, and I
Yeah.
remember what I heard you said, but it was so long ago that I'm curious if you have an answer for me now.
Yeah. No, I remember that conversation. I remember that question particularly. And I think it was something along the lines of, purpose should drive how much we make, right?
Okay.
Or, or something along those lines. I mean, I, for me, money has always been a tool to serve my purpose and my needs. So how much do you make? Well, what are the needs,
Right.
that it's serving? I got a crazy project over here, so I need lots of money. But if I didn't have
We'll
to pay,
talk about that in a bit.
yeah, then probably wouldn't need as much.
Yeah, and that's what
What
that's
was
what I
my,
remember. What's that?
what was the response that I gave you that you remember?
It was along those lines. It
Yeah,
was it was something to the tune of there's no number that I can give you.
yeah,
Oftentimes when people ask a question like this, and this is what you get when you look up this question on the internet, is
yeah,
you get a number or you get some sort of a calculation.
yeah.
Oh, well, if you live in a major city, then you need X
Right.
amount of millions of dollars because that's going to, at 5% interest, $5 million is going to kick off $50,000 a year. That's your living expenses, and then you can live off of your interest, and that's enough. Like,
Yeah,
what you said to me was that it's not a number that you're looking for. It's it has to do with your energy. You probably said the word purpose, but
yeah,
then you said the part that stuck out to me and where it's really guided me probably more than any single piece of advice that I've ever gotten since
mm,
was as long as what you're doing in your business, as long as you don't feel like you're being forced to do something that you know isn't right, or
yeah,
you're not being tempted, there's no enough. I mean, make as much money as you want to make at that point. But the second you get to the point where you're forced to do things that you either know aren't right, or you feel like you are tempted to lie or steal or anything like that, that's when you cross the line. And
yeah.
what's important is that you identify it. Is that true? Where do you sit? That's how I remember the answer,
Yeah.
or at least how I've analyzed it over the years since we had the
No,
conversation.
I think that's very true as well. I think making as much money as possible is good, but I think there needs to be also a channel for that money, right? It's the same way that people always ask me the question about technology and focus. Like,
Yeah.
is technology good? Should we use technology? Should we stop using technology? For me, technology is a tool to help fulfill the purpose. For example, as you know, and you and your wife were here in the gardens helping me many years ago,
I know.
shovels in a container.
Yeah.
Right, we have a garden container, a 20-foot container with all kinds of tools in it, and we have shovels in there. When we want to dig a hole, we grab the shovel, we dig a hole, we clean the shovel, we put it back in the container.
Right.
The technology is no different. The iPhone, the Mac, all the different technologies we have supports a purpose. When we need to fulfill the purpose, we grab the technology, we use it, and then we put it away. I don't see money as being any different than the shovel and the technology. What is the money for? The money is there first primarily to fulfill the needs of our needs, for having a home to live in, food on the table, pay rent, mortgage, utilities, basic needs to take care of the family, then to fulfill some of its wants of comfort that we may need. And then beyond that, there needs to be a purpose for money. So that, money then doesn't drive us in what we do every day. Rather, our purpose drives us. Money helps us to fulfill that purpose.
Purpose.
Yeah.
So how do you get over? This is the part that I
Hmm.
still struggle with. It's the dumbest little fear that I get frustrated by all the time, which is intellectually, I know that I have enough,
Yeah.
but I still am fearful in ways that I can't even explain. Where I feel like more is gonna like somehow solve this. Like once I get to X, I won't worry about this anymore. I know that the second I get to X, there's going to be a new Y that I'm going to
Yeah.
go for. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's this fear though of okay, well, I'm good, but I'm also comparing myself. I'm also fearful that I whatever won't have enough in the future. Like, how
Yeah.
do you think about those things?
I think it's just how, as a householder and not a monastic monk, it's the
Yeah.
nature of a householder, right? So, for example, if I'm earning X
So
number
explain
of,
what those two things are, because I know what they are because I know you, but
okay.
explain what those
So,
two
as
things
a
are.
monk living in a celibate monk in a cloistered monastery where you are in an organizational structure where the organization is receiving funds, donations to support the running of the monastery and paying bills and water bills and electricity bills and internet bills and
Right.
putting food on the table for monks and clothing them, then you don't really have to worry about making money.
Mhm.
The structure of the monastic organization or the religious organization supports the monastic. The monk can go ahead and do his service and his prayer and whatever else he does. As a householder, as a family person, now you may have a wife or husband, kids. You earn just say $80,000 a year. You live in an apartment. You work really hard. You're smart. You get promotion, and now you're earning $150,000 a year. You
Right.
move into a nicer apartment. You get a nicer car that's more comfortable for you and your three kids and your spouse, and a few other needs. And now you need more money to care for these things that you have. So the more you make, the more you create, the more funds you need to support it all.
Right.
And that's why you're right in saying that yes, I have enough for what I need. But as we increase our comfort level and we change our lifestyle, I know you like to travel and explore different countries and live in certain countries for a while. Now that's a need, right? I mean,
Sure.
that's going to take effort and planning and finding a place and moving there and school for kids and this and that. I mean, you know the whole drill.
Yeah.
That requires more financial resources, potentially, I don't know, than maybe just staying put in your apartment in Toronto.
It did.
Yeah.
It did not before, but a lot of these places that we go to have now gotten much more expensive. It was
Right.
actually cheaper. So when we've been this will be my 12th winter in a row away. So we've been doing this
Amazing.
for
Wow.
12 years now, where I've lived abroad for a minimum of 4 months every year, right? And a lot of the places that we lived we lived in Mexico for 4 or 5 years. And I actually did calculations where maintaining a mortgage of our house in Toronto, so like not a cheap mortgage,
Yeah.
maintaining our mortgage on our house in Toronto, and nobody, like, we have friends who stay, but we don't charge them anything. So
Correct.
floating our house, all utilities, internet, everything like that in Toronto, cost us about the same to
Hmm.
physically live in Mexico, rent a new place, fly there, living expenses in Mexico. In addition to floating all of our expenses, Toronto cost us about the same as if we were to stay in Toronto for that time, because the cost of living in Toronto was so high.
Right.
Now, it's not anymore because the cost of living in those other places has risen
Yeah.
a fair bit, but it has now. So let's go back a little bit
Mhm.
to your story. So you shared a little bit about the difference between a monastic and a householder monk, and so I'll spoil the story a little bit now. You're not a monk anymore. You're technically a Hindu priest.
Correct. Thank you for getting it right, by the way. Nobody gets it right. I think you're the only podcast I've been on that's actually got it right. So that's good.
Well, I mean, I've referred to you, I think, as an ex-Hindu monk. I think is how I referred to you before, which
Yeah.
it's not, I guess, technically maybe right. But
Mhm.
so you're a Hindu priest. So after 10 years at the monastery in
Yeah.
Kauai, you decided to not renew your vows and left
Correct.
and made your way to New York City.
Yes.
That was partially to challenge yourself, to
Well,
challenge your focus.
no, not really. It was primarily to make a living.
Okay.
So
So
as
you
a
had what, $1,000, and you're
yeah, they gave me $1,000. I had my robes, my beads, $1,000 cash, and a MacBook Pro laptop,
yeah.
and that's all I had. So I never borrowed any money, and uh, I had all these tools that I've been trained with, and so I thought I could just leverage them and make a living. As a Hindu priest, I fall under the category of a household, a family person. So I needed to work and earn money, and I thought, where better than to go to New York City,
Yeah.
to be in a city that has so much financial focus, and learn about money and learn about wealth, learn about relationship with money, and and what it takes to earn money.
What was the first thing you did when you
I
landed there?
tried to find myself. Well, first thing in terms of, like learning about entrepreneurship, and I decided that I work for myself,
Yeah.
um, was to surround myself with financially successful entrepreneurs.
So how did you
Because
go about doing that?
with my mind, every day I would say an affirmation every morning and every night that I would attract financially successful entrepreneurs into my life. And then I just started meeting people at random places, on the elevator, across the aisle from me on the plane, wherever it may be. And then we began a relationship. I began a relationship with these people. I would exchange with them. A lot of people, when they meet someone who's been successful, they want something from them.
Right.
Hey, John, teach me how to create online courses. Teach me how to be like a fitness coach, or this or that, or how to do a program and this. But no one comes with the attitude of like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
So when I met these successful people, I shared with them who I am and what I was, and they were interested in it. And I asked them, how can I be of service to you?
Mm.
What do I have can add value to you? And when I gave selflessly and generously of my value and whatever I had learned, they gave back in kind. And what they shared with me was more valuable than anything I could learn in any entrepreneurship course or anything. Yeah.
I wonder, you speak a lot about awareness, and I want to talk
Yeah.
about the difference between the mind and awareness and how those two things interact. I want to get into that, but I wonder how much what you're talking about now, how much it goes into the affirmations you speak of,
Yeah.
whether it is actually creating something that wasn't there or whether it is just illuminating an awareness to certain things that would exist anyways. These people might be in an elevator, this person
Yeah.
might be on an airplane, but now you recognize it.
I would say both things. What an affirmation does is it shapes a pattern in your subconscious mind, and then you infuse it with emotion Now that pattern starts to vibrate at a certain frequency. Let's just call it 40 kilohertz. I'm making up some random number. Now I start to
That's
attract.
your engineering background.
Exactly.
your engineering degree before you went to before you joined the monastery.
Exactly. Now I start to attract people that are vibrating at 40 kilohertz, 40.1 kilohertz, 39 kilohertz, 40 kilohertz. There's a common saying that people always say, opposites attract. That's a bullshit saying.
Yeah.
Uh, Opposites attract only for magnets.
Okay.
But if you look at people, go back to the mastermind talks that we met, and spent, I think a couple of years we were there together potentially. Yeah. All the people in there were kind of vibrating at a similar mindset.
Right.
They were entrepreneurs. They wanted to learn. They wanted to grow. They wanted to support the community. They wanted to be in like-minded people. And because they kind of all drew towards each other and connected with each other. So opposites don't attract. It's like-minded vibrations that attract. So if I can shape my subconscious to vibrate at a certain frequency, whatever it may be, then I start to attract those people vibrating at a similar frequency to me. Then the practice of focusing makes you more observant, which then helps you to also be more sensitive, like, oh, that's an interesting guy. I kind of feel like a connection with him, but I'm observant enough. I'm not distracted all over the place that I miss that opportunity. So I would say both of those, the affirmation, the ability to control awareness and be focused and be observant, then allows you to see all these like-minded people in life and then pull them into your circle.
The easiest way for me to demonstrate this, whenever I talk to anybody, it's the simplest thing ever, is just stare into the grass and focus on one part of the grass just for a few seconds.
Yeah.
And you will see just so many things that you never knew existed before. Little flies buzzing around, right? There's all of this life in this whole universe that's just going on. Yeah. In and around this one little space of grass that you would just otherwise just walk over. It's just a really simple reminder of, hey, when you stop and really look at one thing, there's all of these little hidden almost secrets that exist there. And you can't do that very often, very much. So you've got to be selective. But when you
my brother, that same exercise, he used a flower.
Okay.
As a part of training people to concentrate. So pick a flower.
Really?
and focus on the flower. Because now you start to see the petals, you see the little hairs on the petals, the strands, is it translucent? Is the light going through the petal? And it's, the more you look at it, the more you concentrate, the more you see.
Yeah.
And that's why for me, I've always, harped on this concept of focus, because the more focused you are, the more observant you are. And as you go through your day in the default state of focus, you're naturally in the default state of being observant. You see opportunities around you. You see pitfalls around you. Then comes experiential learning of which are opportunities that align with me. How do I avoid the pitfalls? That doesn't mean if you see them, you'll take advantage of them. That comes from experience. But at least you see it around you. You see opportunities. You see pitfalls.
So let's talk. Let's skip forward a little bit. We'll go back to the topics I had normally before this after. Hopefully we can still get to them. But let's go to awareness. I remember I think it was the first ever online course you put out.
Yes.
I don't remember how many years ago this was.
Yeah.
I think it was the first ever online. I might have been the first person to buy it. I was definitely one of the first people to buy it because you emailed me right afterwards.
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember you emailed me right afterwards. But I remember there was a concept in that course about a ball of light.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ruin it because that concept is game changing. So I want you to tell it.
Yeah, the understanding of how the mind works is understanding the difference between awareness and the mind. I describe awareness. Imagine awareness as a glowing ball of light, an orb that can float around, that's glowing. And then the mind is a vast space with many different areas within it. One area is science, one area is fitness, one area is technology, one area is gardening, food, whatever it may be. Now, the mind doesn't move, it's awareness that moves within an area. So if my awareness goes to the technology area of the mind, it lights up that area. I become conscious of that area of the mind.
Yeah.
Now, if awareness moves to the photography area of the mind, it lights up that area. I become conscious of the photography area of the mind. To give an analogy, imagine New York City or Manhattan, or just New York City with its 5 boroughs. If I go to the Bronx, I become conscious of being in the Bronx. Very different than the East Village or the Upper West Side or the Lower West Side or Staten Island or Brooklyn. Now, if I go to Wall Street, I become conscious of Wall Street.
Right.
Manhattan, New York City hasn't moved. The boroughs haven't moved. I have moved within New York City, and wherever I go within New York City, I have an experience of that particular area of New York City. The mind is no different. The mind doesn't move. So when people say, oh, my mind wanders all over the place, I have a monkey mind, technically that's a false statement. Awareness moves within the mind. And wherever you go in the mind, that is what you experience. Do you remember you and your wife standing on our property and watching the well being drilled?
I was going to get to this story.
And the water coming out of the well?
I was going to get to a story about the well because I also remember the well drilling guy running off with your money and
Yes.
gambling and drinking away with it. And that's the part of the story that I was going to get to.
Do you remember standing there and watching the water come out?
I don't remember it being drilled.
Oh, the water coming out of the well?
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that? I have
for that.
An Allison standing there watching the water coming out.
Possible. That's
Yeah.
possible. What were you going to say about it?
No, but just the fact that you guys were here, many years ago, and if I start talking to you about that, your awareness goes to that particular area of the mind where the memory resides, and now you start thinking about it. Your mind didn't move, your awareness went there. Yeah. And then,
and when I have all of these memories when I think about Siva Ashram, which is this beautiful property that you're building in Costa Rica, and we were there pretty soon after you bought it. I mean, I remember walking with you with high snake boots through the rough because you hadn't really even fully cleared the land yet. Yeah. And you were showing me where everything was, and there was the ledge up top, and and we were doing we were measuring it. You had a drone, and we were doing some measurements and things like that with you. And so I have some memories of that, of just you walking with these high boots, and yeah, there's some pretty poisonous snakes out here. Yeah, down there there's some alligators. When it starts to rain, so you got to be careful of that. I was like, hope that you have fun living here, man. But that was, Tatiana was there, but that was well before, Mina, and that was well before any of my kids. Let's get back to the story of the well, though, because I have this down to talk to you about. This guy ran off with your money. So the way that I remember this story is there's basically one guy at that time, I don't know if it's changed, who could dig these types of wells. And so you hired him, but he also happened to be either it was a gambler or an alcoholic or some combination of the two. What was it?
I think it was a combination of the two.
And he just basically disappeared one day and then came back a few weeks later and he's like, yeah, I'm going to need more money. You're like, I already paid you. And he's like, yeah, that's gone. So I'm going to need more. But it was just, a lot of people would get very upset. I'm sure you weren't happy.
Yeah. Wasn't happy.
But it's just one stage of the journey, isn't it?
It is, and it's also accepting the fact that, I am in Costa Rica and things work differently over here. And I made the choice to come here. So you can't get frustrated we get frustrated with things because we expect things to be different than how we normally have them. Like I take groups on retreats to Asia often, quite often we go to India and people get frustrated with how things are in India. And I'm going but that's just India. It's how it is. It's not New York City. It doesn't work like New York City, and you just have to accept it. accepting doesn't mean you approve of it. You just understand that this is how it is.
Right.
And then you can choose then how you want to respond or react. And that doesn't mean that you can always not get upset. That's in the last 10 years, I can't tell you how many times I've just been on the verge of pulling my hair out, because something crazy is happening over here. And you just go like, well,
That's what you signed up for.
it's what I signed up for. I don't think I even realized what I signed up for, what Costa Rica was like. And you never know, like you've lived in different countries and you really don't know.
But I
So
haven't done what you're doing. I mean, I have, but like, I go to a furnished place that somebody else has already gone to the trouble of building, and they hand me the keys, and I call them if something breaks. So,
that is so much better.
I mean, I've done it the smart way, some would say, Don Bonnie. But I guess my question is, it's pretty hard to go for any period of time in business or otherwise where you feel like somebody hasn't wronged you or hasn't. You feel like people haven't treated you right the way that in either respected or. I mean, I have somebody that I'm working with right now who just hasn't delivered on what they promised.
Yeah.
And I guess my question of the story with the well was like, how to you answered it, like how to really think about those things. It's kind of what you sign up for. You can't sign up for running a business without you can't have the good without the bad, can you?
No. And I don't think any business owner would tell you that it's just smooth sailing all the way, right? You're just going to meet countless amount of challenges.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's like, how do we respond to it? Like last year, we built our first structure on the property, and it was a nightmare building here. Absolute nightmare, just working with different vendors and people who said they're coming, they're not coming, they're building something different. And, oh, I know how to do this. And then you find out they don't know how to do this. And you go like, what? Why are you doing it this way? You build a staircase with a stair missing, like, how do you miss a stair? How do you miss a step?
Right.
Uh,
We ran out of concrete, so we're gonna skip stair 3. How does that sound to you?
Basically, that's essentially what it was doing, and I think the first step is just understanding that, they're always going to be challenged and we always have the choice of how we want to respond to it. And there are days, the better you learn to control awareness, the higher the percentage where you have better choices in how you respond. If I can control, let me rephrase this better. If I am good at controlling where my ball of light goes in my mind, the majority of the time I will respond to challenges in a better way.
Right.
If I have less control over the ball of light, then somebody or someone or that challenge can take my ball of light to an angry area of the mind, and I go like, F you, go screw yourself, jump off a cliff and start yelling at the person. But if I can,
Allison and I still talk about our favorite Dandapani moment. we were meeting you. I think we had dinner with you and Tatiana that night, but we met you for sunset at Playa Guiones at
the beach, yeah.
And it was sunset. Everybody's out and around, and we were we were looking out for you, and we see you in the water, and so this is my Hindu. I think I called you a Hindu monk at that point. So I was like, this is my Hindu monk in a bathing suit story, And so we walk out in the water, and Allison was just like, I guess, wondering where you guys were living. And so she asked you, she's like, oh, where are you? Like, where are you living? And you just looked at her and you said, I am here. Yeah. All right. Guess I should be more precise with my words. He's right. I am here. But that's such a perfect story for me of just, no, you were there. You were there with her. You were there enjoying the sunset. You weren't even thinking about, you weren't trying to, it wasn't like sarcastic or anything like that. It was just in your mind, that's where you were at that moment. And it's just such a sticky memory of mine.
Yeah.
Of just, like this is my Hindu monk in a bathing suit memory of just walking out to the sunset and seeing you say, no, I'm here. I'm enjoying the sunset. I'm enjoying this time with you, and we had a great dinner, and I remember we were up like super late for me that night. But
No, and I think that's the big problem now why so many people are, one of the reasons why so many people are unhappy is that they're never present in whatever experience they're having. And you can't be present if you can't focus. If I can't keep my ball of light engaged in the sunset or the beach,
Yeah.
then how can I be present in that moment? And if I can't be present in that moment, I can't enjoy everything that's taking place, whether it's a sunset, being with friends, having a conversation. So now I'm physically there, my ball of light somewhere in the future or something else, thinking about something else or posting about that memory, that experience I'm having.
Yeah.
I'm never there. I never have full experiences in my life. And then I go through my whole life with very, very shallow experiences and being very unfulfilled. And very few people can actually be present. And they can't be present because they can't be focused. Being present is a byproduct of being able to focus. People talk
Yeah.
about we need to practice being present. We need to practice being more present. You don't practice being present, you practice being focused. And when you can focus, the default is you're present. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Well, and
I
so there's a quote.
more muscle. I lift weights. I think to get more muscle. I mean, probably shouldn't be crossing into your territory,
Do
but
it, man.
but, but you know what I'm saying? I don't practice walking around having more muscle or looking fit.
Yeah.
I do the work,
Right.
the looking fit, being fit, feeling fit.
It's a byproduct.
And
It's a lagging indicator of the work that you're doing, isn't it?
yeah, and being present is the lagging indicator of how well you can focus. And people can't focus, and therefore they can't be present. And then they miss out on experiences with friends, family, with life, and then feel unfulfilled.
And something you talk about all the time is you really harp on repetition, and I
Yeah,
respect the heck out of that. You really harp on repetition, where like there isn't a lot of things. Yeah, here's the quote. Okay, I'll read you the I'll read the quote from your book. I'll read you the quote from your book. I'll read the quote from your book.
yeah,
You don't need to learn many tools. The secret lies in learning a few essential tools and mastering them.
yeah,
Go narrow and deep as opposed to shallow and wide. The more you experience a tool, the more it unveils to you. In a world where the majority asks what's next, be the one who is focused on mastering the tool you've embraced. This idea of you don't need to work on many things. There often doesn't need to be a what's next. You
yeah.
certainly don't need to worry about what's next, I don't think, as much. It's more practice and repetition, isn't it?
Look, I played tennis in high school
Yeah.
competitively, and then for fun afterwards with friends. But so I wouldn't say I'm an expert in tennis or a professional at tennis, but take the best tennis player in the world. Do you think he or she is trying to learn a different serve every day?
Right.
Or has he or she got maybe 4 or 5 serves that they've mastered and practiced, I don't know, 100,000 times? So
Huh.
when it's fourth hour of the final game and it's hot as hell in Australia, in the Australian Open,
Yep.
they're 4 hours into the game or
It's
3 hours into the
incredible. Tennis is incredible to me that they can do that. They can go for
right,
4 or 5 hours in the heat at that pace and
yeah,
intensity. It's
yeah.
insane.
And you can cook an egg on the court, and now they have to go there and they have to do that serve and make sure it gets in.
Yeah.
So it's better, I think, where you think people like that who gain mastery have practiced maybe 3 or 4 serves. I don't know, maybe 5, and become really good, as opposed to learning 1,000 different things.
Yeah.
And the same with awareness in the mind. People say that to me all the time. It's every now and then I look at comments on social media. He has only one thing: awareness in the mind. That's all he talks about. He has nothing else.
What else matters?
It's like you can't even get the basic. Why do you even want the next thing? Master this, learn
Right.
this,
Right.
master it, get good at it.
There was advice. My guess is this probably happened at that same event where we met,
Mm.
where you had a conversation with Mark Echo. Uh,
Yes, he's the
he
one
was there
that's
as well.
narrow and deep. Yep.
Yeah. So he says, "Stay narrow and deep." Right. But what he hit on, I think, is something that a lot of the people watching and listening to this now are really going to resonate with, which is it's kind of easy to say stay narrow and deep when you don't have that many opportunities. But as you start to do well and more opportunities start to
Yeah.
appear to you, maybe that's other people making requests on your time. Maybe that's just like, I don't know, I'm sure you're the same way. Once you kind of get good at like this business game, it's pretty hard for me to walk down the street and not be like, I want to do that. Now I want to do that. Now I want to do that. Now I want to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And just grab these opportunities, partly because it's fun.
Yeah.
I just always have this kind of adventurous exploration piece to me. But also, there's just so many things out there that I see that I'm like, oh, with my skill set, I feel like I could really improve that. But this is how a lot of people fail, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, what Mark said to me that day,
Yeah.
was so impactful. And at that time, my business was just at the very infant stages, just like 10, 11 years ago. And I see,
2014, I think, right?
yeah,
2000.
or maybe even a little earlier, I think. It was the first mastermind talks, whenever that was.
Yeah.
Uh, but now I see opportunities coming in, like I want to get involved in this and I want to do that and I want to start that. And it's about staying narrow and deep. And I have this quote I always say to myself, I always tell myself, is opportunities are not opportunities if they're not aligned with purpose. Not opportunities.
Right.
So what's your purpose? I mean, yes, it is a great opportunity, but it doesn't support what I want out of my life. So therefore, it's not an opportunity. Because people come up to me all the time and say, like, I got a great opportunity you'd be really interested in. And I'm like, but it's not aligned with my purpose and where I'm going. So how can it be an opportunity? It's actually a
Yeah.
distraction. It seems like an opportunity to make money or meet people or this or that, but it's a distraction. So opportunities are not opportunities unless they're aligned with purpose. Yeah.
I have a
And
tremendous amount of respect for people who say no to me.
say no to yes. Yeah.
For people who confidently say no to me, I have a lot of respect for them. It's people who don't respond. I mean, it's like people who I don't know that don't respond,
Yeah.
right? Like there's a couple folks who are just people I admire, but I didn't really have a connection to them, and so I sent them a well thought out, well crafted invite to be a part of this event, and some of them said yes,
Yeah.
right? You know, when you ask five people, like some of them might say yes, and so some of them said yes, some of them said no, but a few didn't respond, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
people that I know and have a relationship with, if they don't respond, it's probably not right. But I
Yeah.
kind of lose a little bit of respect for them because it shows me, and I don't know whether this is true or not. This is how I take it, that they don't have a good enough handle on what they do or don't do. I might even call it
Mhm.
purpose to be able to confidently say no, and so they just hope that it goes away.
Yeah.
I really like it when people say no to me. It's weird. I'm like, no, I respect the game, man. Like, high five.
It's great. It's great to have that clarity. Well, I think there's two things to it, right? I mean, one, people, like you're saying, people do or do not know how to say no. The other part of it is some people struggle with managing their business. I'm one of those people, like the amount of volume of emails I get and messages and things going on in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it took me like a few days to respond to you. You wrote back to me, and then it took me another 3 days to respond to you. And it's I don't have the best processes in place to have everything working with Jim and
I don't expect somebody. I think in expectation of immediacy
Mhm.
is a real problem. I didn't
Yeah,
follow up with you and say, "Hey, did you get this? Hey, just checking if you got my email." It was like 4 days. Like I can't reasonably expect that I can send you an email asking if you want to participate in something and you're going to get back to me. You're going to stop what you're doing and think about it and get back to me that day. I mean, that's not a reasonable request in my book. I don't. I mean, I'm happy when people get back to me
mhm.
quickly, but I don't get back to people quickly, and I don't expect them to either. and I certainly don't hold it against him if they don't. Um,
I
so
think it's
it's hard because we it's like it's almost cultural that we should though, isn't it?
yeah, and I don't feel the need to as well. I'm okay with getting back. I feel like I would definitely want to, as a business owner, I want to be better with my processes. That's something I want to improve. But I don't feel the need to get back to people right away. It's just
Yeah,
because
doesn't seem like it's important enough to you.
unless it's urgent, unless I genuinely feel like it's something urgent that they need to hear respond, then I will. But if not, no. But one thing that's really helped me a lot as well, and I don't know if this quote is from Tim Ferriss, but I heard it from him, and I don't know if he was quoting someone else. But
It's probably Einstein or Lincoln. I feel like every quote on the internet is either Tim Ferriss, Albert Einstein, or Abraham Lincoln.
yeah, it's the one way he said, if it's not a hell yes, then it's a hell no.
Oh no, that wasn't him. That was I think that's a Derek Sivers thing.
Is it?
I think is where it
Yeah,
originates.
but
But I've heard that from a bunch. That's kind of become like like internet startup cultural guy lore now.
it's just very helpful, because sometimes I get a request and I'm going like,
Right.
and I go, well, it's definitely not a hell yes, and I only have X amount of time and X amount of energy to invest, right?
Yeah.
And every time I say,
We have a saying. So Amber, who's behind the scenes here, right? We have a saying, her and I, that future us hates current us, and so we always have to think about future us when we make decisions.
I
And the easiest way to do that is the easiest way that I kind of navigate this is if I had to do this thing today, like if somebody's asked me to speak at an event or to do something or whatever, right? And a part of me wants to do it. Maybe it's ego, maybe it's money, maybe it's just like I just genuinely like the person, and even if it's not a good opportunity, I just genuinely like the person,
yeah,
which is not unreasonable either. Um, but if I had to do that thing today, like if it was tonight and I had to leave my family tonight to do it, would I be excited about getting up and doing it? And it's not a perfect litmus test, but it's pretty good. I mean, this kind of goes into one of your questions that you always ask on stage, which is, hey, if you only had 4 hours to live, would you be watching us speak at the Obvious Choice Digital Summit right now?
yeah.
Talk about the idea of shrinking time.
Yeah. So I always say when you shrink time, you increase the clarity of focus. And the idea is not to go through life thinking that you only have 4 hours to live, because that would not be the right way to live. The whole idea with that exercise, it's really about squeezing the orange. You know, if if I squeeze your time down to 4 hours right now, what would the things, who and what would surface to the top? And a lot of times I would ask that, at an event I'm speaking, and I said, like, if you had 4 hours to live, would you stay for the rest of the conference? So mastermind talks or whatever it may be.
Well, this comes down into your question of purpose, and the obvious next question to me is like, okay, cool, I get it, but like, how do I figure out what my purpose is? So I'm going to read you a quote from your book, one more
Okay.
quote from your book that I'd love for you to go deeper on
Yeah.
and discuss a little bit. Okay, it goes, in being completely present in the experiences I was having, I realized I got the most out of them, which resulted in me being happy.
Yeah. Again, I think the big distinction here is that, focus precedes being present, or being present is a byproduct of being able to be focused.
Yeah.
And that's why I always start with focus, because if I can focus, which, if I were to define, is my ability to keep my ball of light on who and what I am with. So if I'm speaking with you, John, I can keep my ball of light on you. I can be engaged with you. I can listen fully to everything you're saying, the things you're not saying to me, subtle things that you may be feeling. And then I have a full experience of being with you, the same way with the sunset on the beach or whatever it is I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Then I go through life feeling fulfilled. I have the emotions of being happy and fulfilled and content, because every experience I've really taken so much from it, not just the the verbal conversations, the subtle things around there and everything. So I'm going through life having really deep, narrow and deep experiences rather than just really shallow ones, if that makes sense. And then my life feels more fulfilled. I can't tell you how many times I've been now on a Zoom call, recently working with a company too. 10 people on the call, 3 of them had the cameras on, so I could see them interacting with me. The rest had cameras off, mics off, probably doing email, whatever. Like, why the hell are you even here?
Why are you even here?
Go do something else. Seriously.
One of the other speakers at this event, I'm not sure if you've ever come across her work or know her name, but her name is Dr. Gloria Mark.
No.
And she's the Chancellor's Professor at the University of California.
Okay.
And she leads up what's called the Informatics Lab. So her research focus is on attention span, and particularly attention span as it pertains to the intersection between humans and technology.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that a lot of her work very much aligns with a lot of your practice.
Mm.
And so their research is very much backing this up. Something that you said earlier, I can't remember your exact words, I tried to write them down, but it's very hard to really listen to somebody and take notes at the same time.
Yeah.
So I can't remember your exact words, but it had to do with you can't, she calls it task switching. You can't multitask. That's not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
What you do is you focus on one thing, then another, then back and forth. Mm-hmm. And each time she calls them mental schemas. Your brain pulls up a mental schema each time, and it's like a new schematic. There's your engineering background again. And it brings up a new schematic for that thing. And it can be energetically incredibly taxing, number one, which is why we're often exhausted at the end of the day. But also, we're never really paying attention to anything.
No.
And it's a big problem on video calls.
And how can you go deep into the grass when you're switching between the grass and the leaf and the branch?
You can't.
You
can't.
So
Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I'm good friends with the guy who heads up all of his media stuff.
Okay.
And you know what he told me?
Mm-hmm.
He said Arnold will never do a phone call that isn't on FaceTime. Isn't that interesting? Because he looks at you.
Yeah.
When he's talking to you, and he wants you to look at him.
I'm getting strict on that. I've been very strict about that in person with someone. Like if I'm sitting with someone and they have their phone, keep looking at it, I'll get up and leave.
Yeah.
It's like, why even here? But I haven't set up such a strict policy with video, and I've just had some really bad experiences in the last few weeks. And I think I just need to define for myself what my policy is and then communicate it to the people that are coming online digitally with me. And it's like, you want my time and then you're driving on the street asking me for advice. And I'm like, obviously it's not that important to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying it should be, but if it's not, then what are we doing here? Yeah. If it is, let's do this. If it's not, then what are we doing here?
Yeah. And especially if you ask for my time.
Yeah. Right.
The very least you can do is your undivided attention. I need that. I need you to be present, engaged with me.
Well, you've spoken about that on podcasts a few times where people have asked you to do certain exercises that you will do on stage. And you just say no, because on a podcast, people aren't sitting down listening to a podcast. They're off doing something. You can't, exactly. I can't take your attention and work through this exercise with you on a podcast. Just the medium doesn't lend itself to it.
Yeah, no, very true. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Siva Ashram, because you brought up the conversation about purpose a lot. And, Siva Ashram, at the end of the day, is not my core purpose in life. I would consider what I call a sub-purpose in life.
Tell me what it is first.
Yeah, so Siva Ashram is this 33-acre Hindu spiritual sanctuary and botanical garden we're creating in Nosara. We bought land 11 years ago, and that was abandoned, and
It was very abandoned. I remember you trying to give me directions on how to get there on my ATV.
I'm really glad you saw it back then, because very few people actually saw it in the early stages. And you and your family should come back now and see what it looks
Oh,
like.
we'd love to.
It's
We'd love to.
it's changed so much, but it's part of my sub purpose in life, and it drives where I focus my time and energy, right? Of what we're
Let's talk
creating.
about that.
Yeah. So, and even within knowing that, it has a clear mission, a vision for this project, it's interesting that you can also get distracted within the project.
Interesting.
Yeah, within the purpose, because I have
Do you have
purpose.
an example of that?
Yeah, people will come up and say, like, there's a great opportunity. Why don't we do this instead? Like, you're trying to create this. Maybe we can create a hotel on site and people can come and live. And how amazing will it be for people to be able to stay on site and have retreats every day? And then you should do this. This is an amazing opportunity.
You can make so much money, right?
Make so much money. It's great for people. Imagine the impact you would have on people's lives. Sometimes people don't even talk about money. They talk about the impact you would create in people's lives if you did the X, Y, Z.
Right.
So within clarity, there can be so much opportunity for distraction as well. And that's why bringing awareness back and staying to what is the mission, what is the purpose, and staying narrow and deep in that.
So
because
I was going to end with
the
this.
feel of what you do, I'm sure there's 1,000 ways you could distract yourself.
Oh God, I do it every day, and then I go back to your work. I get back to the practice. Well, that's one of the things that you talk about, right? Is what you practice, you get better at. And so if you practice distraction, you get better at being distracted. Don't
Yeah.
you?
And you talk about earlier, you mentioned about repetition and how, it's not only about the repetition of the good things that we have to be conscious of. We have to be really conscious about the repetition of the negative things, right? So for example, social media, we all spend time on social media, and Instagram Reels, for example, or, is 90 seconds. There's some that are 60 seconds. If you're flipping through a reel, and not all videos are actually 90 seconds, some are 30, some are 40, and whatever it is, you're training your subconscious to be attentive for up to 90 seconds.
Yes.
And if you do that 2 hours a day, I don't know how many 90 seconds they are in 2 hours. Somebody wants to math on that. All right. And if you're doing that 2 hours a day, 7 days a week, imagine after 6 months, you'd be so well trained at keeping your ball of light on something for 90 seconds. Now I sit down to have a conversation with you, John. I can keep my awareness on you for 90 seconds before it is trained to go off to something else.
Or you sit down with a book or anything.
Or anything with your child, with
movie.
Your movie even. Yeah. You pick up your phone while the movie is going on and you go like, oh,
yeah.
Let's get seen. Rewind. Let me rewind that. I didn't hear what. Yeah. So, but that's how it is. You become good at whatever it is you practice. So even if it's something negative, and most people aren't conscious of practicing the things that develop negative patterns in their mind.
I think that's why I love this idea of the repetition so much. Is there's nothing wrong inherently with any of these things. I mean, there's nothing wrong with social media. It is what it is. There's a lot of good to it.
Yes.
But this idea that you get better at what you practice. And so if you practice short-term attention, you're going to become very, very good at short-term attention, which is not even in and of itself, I think, an inherently negative thing, but it is a thing.
Yeah.
And is that the thing that you want to be good at? I mean, if you're a short form media creator, like video creator, like maybe that's all you should do.
And also, right, John, that spills into every other aspect of your life. Yeah. So when you're sitting with your child, with your spouse, the people you love, even doing something you love, that's all you're getting is 90 seconds with your daughter, with your son.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So if they're sharing something really profound with you or deep about their life with you, that's going to take 10 minutes to share, you may only catch 90 seconds of it. and the rest is going to go past you. Physically, you're sitting there nodding at them, listening, going like, oh, yeah, okay. But your awareness is somewhere else in your mind. And then what's the purpose of life at that point?
Isn't it so cool that your daughter's old enough now to share with you?
Yeah, no, it's really amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
And more reason why I should be better at being focused.
Yeah.
So I can
Because they're
experience.
pretty good at it. They're surprisingly good at it, too.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to end talking about Siva Ashram a little
Yeah.
bit. So there was something you said to me very, very early on. You were talking about we were I don't even know, we were like measuring stuff out or mapping stuff out or something. One of the times I was there, and you were talking to me about some of the planting and the trees coming into it, and all of the vegetables and fruits, and how you were importing, sometimes legally, sometimes illegally, seeds and stuff in there, to plant all of these things to see what would take, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that you said to me was, um, you know, a lot of the stuff that's growing isn't even going to be anywhere close to mature by the time I leave this earthly plane.
Yeah.
You're building something
Mm-hmm.
that's not even going to be done by the time that you die. I mean, talk about vision, talk about legacy. That was common at one point when people were building these massive palaces and things that would take 200 years.
Yeah.
I've never heard of another example of somebody that's ever done that.
Yeah, I think because again, purpose should drive everything, right? What's the purpose of Sivashram? The purpose of Sivashram is twofold. One is to create a space where people can learn tools and
Yeah.
teachings to live better lives, more fulfilled lives, happier lives. And then the second part of this, with the gardens, is to train people to care about our planet. Because if we don't have a healthy planet that provides us with healthy air and clean water and clean food, we cease to exist. We
Yeah.
need a healthy planet. It's just not even an option.
And it's so much bigger than us at this point.
Right. So when it's this way, right? People don't care about something if they can't see the problem right in front of them. You know, if a lion is in a jungle 1,000 miles away, you're going like, who cares? The lion's in
Right.
front of you, it's a problem. And I think with Earth, the problem often is so far ahead in the sense that global warming, it hasn't really like hit you and impacted you right this moment, you know, unless there's meteorites falling out of the sky. So with having a long-term vision, it's really about saying, okay, what can I do today so that my child, my grandchild, my great-grandchildren have a place to live in? If I could see my great-grandchild and I feel that I would love him or her, then the question to ask myself is, what am I doing today to ensure that he or she has a place to live in?
Yeah. That's beautiful. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I still remember that. And that's always been meaningful to me. So,
Yeah.
Dandapani, thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
This was a joy. It was good to catch up, and it was good to see where my memory was accurate and where I've filled in the blanks myself over the
I
years.
think you have a pretty good memory there. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, of
Talk to you
course.
soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.